on behalf of the board, staff, I would like to welcome you and thank you for joining us this evening. We are thrilled that Mount St. Vincent University, the Office of Senator Bernard, Department of Women's Studies, Professor Mackey, and her team, DBDLI, and our esteemed panel have returned to have this important conversation at the Black Culture Center for a second year. I would also like to acknowledge that we are in Mi'kmaq, the traditional or ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We also acknowledge that people of African descent have been in Nova Scotia for over 400 years, and we honor and offer gratitude to those ancestors of African descent who came before us to this land. Thank you all so much for coming here this evening, and we are so grateful to have this important conversation, and we hope that you all enjoy yourselves. Let us know if you need anything, and let's have a great evening. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, and sorry, a message from our panelists. We will be live streaming this, so let anyone know at home who can't come to this evening that you can find it on the Black Culture Center's YouTube channel. And we would like if you didn't record any of this evening on your own personal devices. I would now like to bring up Sylvia Paris from DBDLI.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay, I'm not going to play that game with you, am I? Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for coming. So I don't know how it gets taken up when you say welcome and welcome to our community home. I'm very appreciative of the Black Cultural Center for collaborating with Delmore Buddy Day Learning Institute and the support that we have from the Nova Scotia Advisory Council on the Status of Women to help us bring this event. So in some ways it does feel maybe a little bit bold to say welcome into somebody else's house, but I think we have the communal relationship of this lovely space and the work that happens in it. So I'm taking that chance and saying that to welcome here. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a context in terms of going into this evening's panel. I'll echo Riel in that we're very excited that folks could make it here, and we're also happy that people that could not physically make it here will have the access, again with thanks and recognition to the Black Culture Center for live streaming it. And then we'll also have it later for review. So it was mentioned, we all mentioned that this is a bit of a follow-up. So March 21st we know is an important date towards the elimination of racial discrimination. And so these conversations that center voice, that acknowledge race and the impact of race are very important. And I'm pleased that DBDLI was invited to be part of this panel. We were in the room as individuals, but not part of the collaborative shared partnership and leadership. So we're happy to be here in that role. And I do want to acknowledge, as we're saying that there was folks in the room who were on the panel last year. Ione Stoddard is here. Lizzie Yvonne Atwell is here. And those folks were part of the panel discussion last year in terms of the dialogue around this very important topic. I am now going to have the opportunity to bring forward our moderator for this evening's program. And in that introduction, I do want to honor and speak to the pieces that celebrate and acknowledge the work that she has done in terms of academia and engagement. But I also want to acknowledge Dr. Mackey in terms of her role of sensitivity, of engagement in a way that is very appreciative of community and of centering community voices and of valuing women's voices and of valuing Black women's voices. And so foundationally, that is what we want to kind of echo and model for each other. That's the way we're doing things in a sense in terms of being. So, but I also want to honor, like I said, the piece of work, and we'll hear other panelists introduced more fully after. So, Dr. Maki Matenpaye-Ne is an associate professor in the Department of Women's Studies at Mount St. Vincent University. Her research and teaching spans the academic areas of feminist epistemology, methodology, colonialization, annual and social movements, decolonization, motherhood studies, and cultural studies. Recent and forthcoming publications examine Canadian child care policy, a very timely topic for what's happening now, equity, diversity and inclusion, and leadership practices in the post-secondary world, and motherhood in the African cinema world, Black motherhood, maternal anger, and feminist humor. And these are all concepts that I would say that would go to what is our energy and what is our direction which holds us forward. She is the editor of Motherhood and Lone Single Parenting, a 21st Century Perspective, and Mothering in Hip Hop Culture, Representation, and Experience. It is my pleasure to invite Dr. Maki to the podium.
Good evening, everyone. It's quite hard to sit there and listen to it. Thank you, Sylvia, for that very generous introduction, and I want to share with everybody that in fact this amazing team, Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard, who in fact was my master's work supervisor, and a long time, I consider Senator Bernard a long-time mentor. Sylvia at the DDDLI, with whom we've had many conversations over the last few years and projected projects together. This is the team that teamed me, not the other way around. So I do want to make that clear. And I feel very fortunate and blessed to be able to be invited into this kind of work. Which is a reminder for me of our grounded collectivity in everything. At least this is how I think. In the work that I'm doing, I'm in spaces that are not here. Sometimes spaces that can be quite alienating in various ways. But what I always remember is that I have a place. And so I am grounded somewhere. I am embraced somewhere. And so that is part of what I take as I move through those spaces, and that's certainly how I'm thinking about every single time you gather like this. I'm so grateful because I think of it as a visual, and also in terms of our presence together, that physical representation of standing in community and in collectivity with each other, always at all times. That's kind of the constant present, as it were, the constant present that we carry with us wherever we go. So I'm eternally grateful for that. I'm very thankful for all of you who managed to make your way here tonight in person. That's not always easy. And for those who may be watching from wherever you are, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for being with us, and I encourage you to ask questions as well, because that's open to the folks who are watching live as well. So my job right now is to introduce our great panelists. We're so fortunate. Thank you so much for so generously giving of your time to be here with us, and to continue that conversation that we had last year, because we had a number of really important prompts that we received from community members at that time, and we took that to heart. So we made sure that we would weave that into the questions and the considerations this time around. All right, so in order of how our panelists are sitting, I will begin the introductions. First, we have MLA Susie Hansen. Susie represents Halifax Needham and serves as the NDP caucus chair. A passionate advocate for affordable housing, healthcare access, education reform, and community safety, she has dedicated her political career to amplifying the voices of marginalized communities. Before entering politics, she was an active member of the Halifax Regional School Board and held leadership roles in various community organizations. As a legislator, MLA Hansen continues to push for progressive policies that address social inequalities and improve the quality of life for all Nova Scotians, particularly African Nova Scotians. Her role as an innovator in provincial politics continues to inspire many Nova Scotians and future leaders. Thank you, Susie, for being on the panel. Next is Councillor Virginia Hinch. Virginia represents District 8, Halifax Peninsula North, on the Halifax Regional Municipality Council. A committed public servant and long-standing community advocate, she brings a wealth of experience to her role in municipal governance. Before her election to the Halifax Regional Council in 2024, she dedicated 15 years to the Nova Scotia Provincial Housing Agency, gaining invaluable experience in housing issues. Her dedication to public service is further exemplified by her roles on several boards and committees, including the Board of Police Commissioners, the Halifax Forum Community Association, and the Women and Gender Equity Advisory Committee. Councillor Hinch's extensive experience and unwavering commitment to her community continue to drive her efforts in fostering positive change and advocating for the residents of District 8. Welcome. Okay, the Honourable Minister Twyla Gross. Minister Gross was elected as the MLA for Preston in 2023 and currently serves as Nova Scotia's Minister of African Nova Scotian Affairs and Minister of the Public Service Commission. A lifelong resident of Cherrybrook, Minister Gross has spent decades engaged in community service and advocacy. She holds a Bachelor of Business Administration from Mount St. Vincent University and built a distinguished 36-year career in finance with the Halifax Airport Authority before entering politics. Minister Gross has been a vocal advocate for policies that improve health, education, and public service equity. She is the first Black woman to serve in the Nova Scotia Cabinet and is widely recognized for her compassionate and community-driven approach to governance. Welcome, Mr. Okay, and the Honourable Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard. Senator Bernard is a champion for equity and justice with an extensive career in social work, academia, and community leadership. Appointed to the Senate of Canada in 2016 as a representative of Nova Scotia East Preston, she has been a tireless advocate for systemic change in addressing racial and gender inequalities. Dr. Bernard is a founding member of the Association of Black Social Workers and plays an integral role in advancing social justice policies and initiatives across Canada. A distinguished academic with a long-standing tenure at Dalhousie University. She is also a member of the Order of Canada and the Order of Nova Scotia. Senator Bernard continues to inspire and mentor future leaders, embodying a steadfast commitment to community empowerment and advocacy at the highest levels of governance. Thank you, Senator Bernard. Okay, now Senator Bernard has a presentation for us to get the conversation started, so I will cede the mic.
Thank you so much. I'm really planning to be tall in the next election. I want to talk very briefly, and I'm timing myself, yes, very briefly about Black women in politics, just to set the context for our conversation. So I'll talk about Black women in politics, talk about the glass and the concrete ceilings, identify some of those barriers that keep us out of those spaces, and then wrap up with some key messages. So why are most, not just women, but most African Canadians absent from civic engagement? And I want to talk beyond politics to civic engagement. Why are we not involved outside of our own communities? Most of us who do community work are very comfortable volunteering in our own communities, but the broader civic engagement pieces get lost. Part of it, I think, is because of the impact of racism and trauma. We're so busy dealing with the racism, the everydayness of racism. Who has time to put themselves into those spaces where, quite frankly, we know you'll experience more of the racism. We're also dealing with multi-generational trauma. And when you're dealing with multi-generational trauma, it seeps from your pores in different ways. And that's one of the things that can keep us out of some of those spaces.
Yes.
Feeling voiceless. When we feel we don't have a voice, it's very difficult to put ourselves out there where you may be attempting to use your voice. And then, of course, we know that there are so many systemic barriers. When I think about the social determinants of health, which we like to call the structural determinants of health, and actually having racism included finally as one of those, I think it speaks volumes.
It does.
It speaks volumes to those systemic barriers and how they keep us out. Did I go the wrong way? I can't see. Yeah. Okay. So when we think about politics, and it's wonderful to see multi-generations here this evening. So this message is for the young people. When you think about engagement in politics, remember that that engagement in politics begins with an engagement in your community, begins with an engagement in your school, being involved at that very local level. And when I do talks with high school students, one of the things I say to them is, look around your school. What are the issues that are of concern to you? And then what will you do about it? Not enough just to complain about what's going on. And this is how we put ourselves into those spaces. Many Black people who become involved in politics get their start with school boards. I think MLA Hanson, that was your start. School boards, sitting on boards and commissions. And again, you know, there's a lot of activity to encourage more representation, even at that level. That is civic engagement. And then, of course, we have politics at all levels, and you have all levels represented here this evening, except for the federal government. So you'll hear more about provincial and municipal politics. The reality is, though, we all know that a lot of effort has gone into creating systemic change for women. What they didn't tell us was that was mostly white women.
Well,
So racialized women, indigenous women, women with disabilities haven't been seen as women, and quite often when they break through the glass ceiling, they find concrete. They find concrete. And that's one of the things that keeps us out. And the concrete ceiling is that intersection of race and gender. that impacts our reality. I don't know if you've heard about this study. This young professor, Aaron Hawley at Carleton University, stepped out and did an amazing piece of research called Black on the Ballot. And if you haven't looked up that study, please do so. An amazing piece of work speaking about Black Canadians in politics. And she had to dig deep to even find people to participate in the study. Number one, because there are so few. Number two, no one's documenting this history. This history is being lost or stolen from us. So she had to work really hard to find people, but she did. And one of the things that she learned in her study was that Black women, more so than Black men, were more likely to consider running when someone other than themselves encouraged them to do so. So whereas with men, they're more likely to step into those spaces, women need to be nudged, encouraged, supported. It's very difficult. So what about that? What about mentorship? What about sponsorship? The Nous Au Cerveau principle of NIA, which means purpose. I see that in action. And I think that when we find our purpose and use the positions that we are in, we can make a difference. And part of our job really needs to be mentoring and sponsoring the next generation. How do we bring others along? Maya Angelou says, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. Imagine, we're in these spaces because our ancestors worked so hard to make a difference for us to be here. They made a difference for us to be here. They made a difference for us to be here. Has the band gone? Help?
No.
There you go.
You're good.
So the hands-free is not working.
It just started.
Thank you. One of the things that's important for us to always keep in mind is that hope will never be silent. This painting was done in real time on the first Halifax City Emancipation Day. This young African Nova Scotian artist drew this as we went through the event that evening. Some of you may have been there. It was quite amazing. When I saw her painting, I said, I must have that. So I bought it. Thanks. Said I wouldn't pay for it. I thought I could claim it, but they wouldn't let me. It doesn't matter. Hope will never be silent. I bought the painting in my office, and I'm now using it because it speaks volumes. It speaks volumes. And so we know that there are external barriers that we have to overcome. The experiences of systemic anti-Black racism. I already talked about the concrete ceiling that Black women face. And this is based on a research project that was done, that I led, called The Experiences of Black Women in Leadership in the Public Sector. Employment equity policies. We'll go to the next slide. We have employment equity policies, but how we implement those leaves much to be desired. From this study, we also heard that there are a lot of internal barriers. Black women holding themselves back, buying into that imposter syndrome. And we're told about imposter syndrome, and when we internalize those messages, when we internalize the racism, when we internalize the negative stereotyping, when we internalize the racism, we don't believe in ourselves. And that's when mentors and sponsors become so important, because they believe in you when you can't believe in yourself. But we need to remove the barriers. So we need systems changes, and we're going to get into some of that conversation this evening. We need better support systems. We need self-advocacy. We need to teach young women, young Black women, how to advocate for themselves. We need to teach young people how to empower themselves, because we can't depend on other people to do it. And I'm within my time, I'll go to my last slide. Remember that hope will never be silent. And I think, well, I said I'd be 10 minutes. Remember, you can use the principle of NIA, purpose, to bring Black women into political spaces. Thank you. Thank you, Magda.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Senator Bernard, for setting the tone so well for the conversation that is to follow, and giving us a blueprint, giving us a foundation for the discussion that we're about to have. So I'm going to move down to this chair that was so generously provided for me here. I just need to, there we are. The mic. Okay. Please forgive all the static as I try to figure out how to do this. As you might be able to tell, I'm not a performer. And I really like corners and the background. So that is usually the preferred state of things. So I wanted, okay, thank you, Matt.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Great. I wanted to just give everyone an indication before we jump right in, just thematically, some of the topics that we're hoping to hit on with the questions. So I'll begin by asking a little bit about personal political journeys, and then lessons in leadership. There'll be some questions about policy and advocacy priorities, some questions about community engagement and impact, then equity and political representation, a few questions on thoughts on the future of Black women in politics, and then some final reflections. Okay. So let us jump right in. I'm wondering, and I think sometimes we can go from left to right, or depending on where you're sitting. And some of these questions maybe can be answered at random, depending on who is more ready for them. But I'm wondering, to begin, can each of you please share a little bit about your journey into politics and what inspired you to take on public leadership roles? Okay, thank you. Thank you for taking over.
I might as well bite the bullet. So, my journey, and I was just reminded of this tonight by Yvonne Atwell, that we had a lovely conversation back about 25 years ago. I was working at the drugstore on Gaudigan Street, and she was in the drugstore, and I was asking her about her political life and how she was encouraging me as a Black woman to, think about it and to perhaps see what that journey would look like for me. Didn't think about it for a while, because after I left the drugstore, I got into Nova Scotia Provincial Housing Agency, and then I started working for the community. And I mean, I was always in community, whether it was through the Community Y or anything of that. I was always there. I coached basketball. I did so many things through the community. Why? That's another stepping stone. But anyways, working at the Nova Scotia Provincial Housing Initiative, which was Metro Regional Housing Authority at the time, I felt another thing pulling me towards being in the political realm, which was serving my community, serving my people, housing somebody. You don't really know what that really means until you actually see them in their new home, in their, I didn't understand what my role was, to be honest with you, when it came to that, because there were people that were literally homeless and they didn't have a place to live, and I gave that to them, and I still didn't understand what I was doing until I had somebody literally collapse in my arms and crying and saying thank you, and then I was like, oh my God, I get it. I get it. I get while I'm here. And I was there for 15 years. But again, the system was not always serving us right as well. So I felt that I was having some issues with the employer, back and forth, you know, a little bit of, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but a little bit back and forth. So I kept feeling that, you know what, there's something else for me out there. There's something else that I should be doing. There's a higher calling for me. And then, you know, in 2016, that was the first time that I did put my name forward for council. And but there was a whole slew of people at that time that were running, and one of the people was Lindell Smith. And you know what? We were fighting for a cause at that time when it comes to our young black men being killed and things of that nature. So I decided to kindly back out and support that young man in his journey. So I would say that's where that's where I started from. And that's why, you know, I'm here today, because again, I feel that we have a lot more to achieve.
Amen.
We have a lot more to conquer, and we need to be a voice. The thing that I will say is the one thing that was disheartening to me is that, you know, there were two black people on council, and unfortunately, we lost one. We lost two actually, but the only thing that it replaced were two others. So there was two more. So the thing is that we need more than just two people on council.
Amen.
We need more. So hopefully we can strive to get more than just two in the future.
Thank you, Virginia, for sharing that. And you know, I picked up on two kind of key items there in terms of entry point. You mentioned initially this piece around what's in the literature referred to as the importance of symbolic representation. There was someone in the community who had done it and was able to say something, and even though maybe it wasn't at the right time, the idea was there.
Exactly. And I had quite a few people to look towards, to be honest with you. Whether it's Melinda Day, whether it was Elon Atwell, there were so many people at that time that were that I looked to for their support, their guidance, and everything which they have given me. So yes.
And then the closeness to the real need.
And the closest to the real need. Oh, definitely, yes.
Okay. Shall I call by name?
I can share. About my journey, politics was definitely not in the cards or the thoughts for me initially. I was happy to be a mom, and I seen so many things happening in the community that I volunteered, I became a part of things. And it's similar to Senator Wanda when, you know, you get nudged in directions, right? Like, there were people around me that were like, you should be doing this, you're always advocating for this, you're, you know, showing up to these meetings and basically arguing with people about the best things and the things that our community needs and the people and the kids. So the journey started off with the school board as being elected then. And I don't know if many people know, but at the time, school board is like a small election compared to, you know, the councilorship election. So it's a large riding, but it's a small number of votes. But I was grateful to be able to serve in that position for the short amount of time that the school boards were there. And when it became disbanded, I felt like my voice needed to be heard more than ever, because when there was no longer a school board, I understood that there was not the same accountability that the government had to, you know, face by the people and by the people that represent them. So I one day went to Province House. I've been to Province House many times as a performer, as a singer, as, you know, as someone who's been in that house. It wasn't a surprise, but at that time, listening to debate and listening to how folks could decide, you know, the well-being of all Nova Scotians without thinking about the effects that it would actually have on our communities, it changed my view. And so, you know, years go by, that was 2016, and I was elected in 2021, but because I was nudged. Someone was like, Susie, this spot's coming up, you better get out there or I'm gonna push you to do it. I'll be the one. And I was like, I don't know if this is the thing for me, but I think because of the support and the embracing of a role that is a possibility for anyone, it was just like a natural thing to do. I was in community, having conversations already, advocating, doing the work, but not doing it in a way that can impact the legislation and the laws of the province. So I was gratefully elected in 2021, and then as well in this last election, my second term in 2020.
Thank you, Susie. And I definitely heard you tell us more than once about the nudging, which Senator Bernard mentioned the importance of. Yeah, and then that, I think, too, really important piece around the importance of having voices at the table and in the room who have the lived experience, who have the experiential knowledge, because what happens when there's perhaps even good intent, but the lived experience with all of that fullness of the knowledge isn't there.
Minister.
Well, you know something, I got into politics rather late in life, after I retired. I've always been involved in the community, and I worked at Halifax Stanfield International Airport for some 36 years. Those are experiences that help you, that assist you, that allow you to grow. I want to say this, that I've been involved in politics all my life. If we understand the meaning of the word politics. And politics is just a set of activities that are associated with making decisions. So in that sense, it was there. With regards to politics, I had no idea I was ever going to do what I did, what I'm doing. I guess after I retired, I was looking at doing facilitation type work. You know, work in budgeting and business planning and all that I made my career out of. But they sought me out. I did not ask for this. And so it was really difficult when I was asked to get involved. And I remember I tell the story, and this is the truth. I asked my mother, and you know what she said to me? Simply this: Twyla, for such a time as this. So I took her at her word, and I just got involved. One of the things I recognized, you know, everybody wants to be embraced and everybody wants to belong. It's hard. There are challenges out there in no matter what we get involved in. But you know what I've learned to do? I've learned to turn those challenges into opportunity.
Come on now.
But I'm going to tell you something that does my heart good. When I can sit in that Nova Scotia legislature and I can look across the room and I can see someone who looks like me. But not only across the room, behind me, there is someone that looks like me. We are moving forward. Things mightn't be moving at the pace we want them to move, but change sometimes is in small increments, step by step by step. Can't you see some of the great things that are happening? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rose. Thank you so much. You know, as you were speaking, I was thinking about the sophistication of Black women's leadership in all its forms. And the way that we can often see either trepidation maybe to consider entering politics, but even attitudes perhaps about, oh, well, you don't know much. You don't have much skill. Mm-hmm. You know, and the way you spoke about your vast experience before you even got into and so far all three of the panelists who have spoken have talked about a wealth of experience before even entering this kind of formal arena. And so that is an allotment of very important skills and a type of knowledge it has a lot of sophistication to it. And because it doesn't sound a particular way or it doesn't take a particular shape, I think unfortunately it can be regarded as not much, let's say, which is a mistake. Yeah. Thank you. Senator Bernard.
Senators are not elected in this country. And they used to be appointed based on party affiliation until now former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was elected in 2015. And one of the things that he chose to make a priority was modernization of the Senate. And part of that was changing the way Senate appointments were made. And so he set up these independent panels. There are 3 permanent people on the panel, and then 2 people from each province where there are vacancies. And I had faced a fair number of concrete ceilings in my career. A lot of people look and say, oh, she's done so well, but you know, what you don't know is that I actually faced a lot of concrete ceilings. I don't talk about them, but I certainly faced them. When I heard Justin Trudeau talking about how he was going to change things, quite frankly, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it. And then I was working at Dalhousie at the time. I'd come home, my husband is retired, and he'd say, you know, Wanda, you should apply because he's talking about people like you. I said, yeah. So if you hear that every day for a few months, you might decide to apply. So I applied along with 2,700 others. And there were 2 vacancies in Nova Scotia. Wow. So that's how it is. And I've been approached by every party at both levels for many years to run for office, provincially, federally, and I always said no. And I remember being at an event once, and there was a person there who was trying to really encourage me to run, and I kept saying no. And this person said, well, no, why not? Why won't you run? And I said, well, I'm afraid I might win. And quite frankly, because I've been because you live under a microscope. Especially if you're black, and especially if you're a black woman. And so I chose not to run. And here I am encouraging people to run. But I've changed, over the years. And if I were to tell my younger self something, I would say run. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we've been seeing the political landscape in this province changing over the years. How might each of you see the role of Black women evolving within this landscape?
Well, I can say that I think that there is no better time than now to really, ground yourself, obviously in your community, but to step up in positions. We've been doing it for years, as Minister has said, that, we are very political in our mindset when it comes to everything that we do, even if we don't think it. But I think there's no better time than now to do that work. I think we all have an opportunity to step up and inspire others, or step up and be in a role, and we've been doing it for a long, long time. I think now is the time to have our voices heard more than ever, because of the landscape that is changing, that may no longer have the same type of acceptance towards who we are. We need to be in positions where it will be harder to say no, harder to change those things if we are in those spaces, to be able to protect and to talk about and to impact. So I think, the time is now. It can be any time, but I think there's 4, strong Black women up here. There's a number of Black women in the audience that are strong in everything that they do, and I think that in itself builds us up to do the work that we do. So any time would be the time, and I think now is more than ever.
Very well said.
I think the timing is very critical. So, for example, it's hard to believe, but in 2023, we had our first Black woman minister.
Yeah.
Like we've been here since the 1600s, right? But we have a Black woman at the cabinet table. And whether you realize it or not, that changes things. Her presence, I'm sorry, I'm talking about you as though you're not here. That's okay. But Minister,
And you know what? Listen, you're right, because guess what? They see me.
they see you, you're there. So being someone's, people often say, look, if they don't want to give you a seat at the table, build your own table. But politically, we can't build tables, right? We're part of a democracy. We have certain structures in place. We have a seat at the cabinet table.
Amen.
And having that in itself, the presence of a Black woman around that table, is making a difference, and will continue to make a difference as the political landscape of this province, as we work with this over the next few years.
Any other thoughts on that one?
I would possibly say, if in my experience, it hasn't been easy. I'm not going to lie and say that it is easy, but it's not. But it is well worth it. I would say that to put ourselves out there and to make a difference for our communities. Listen, I would be the last person to say that. Oh, well, I have all this experience. I have all this. I don't. But I'm willing to learn, and I'm willing to if any young person that wants to get into politics, if young Black females, I am here for you. I want to talk to you because, again, well, I don't know about Susie, but well, I'm not getting any younger. I'm going to point to myself. And I will also say that a woman of color and that has a disability, because not many people knew I had a disability. Not many people knew until they saw the cane. And I've hid that for many years. Many years. I've been with this disability for over 20 some odd years. And I just got a cane just a couple days ago. So, but, I want to be that person to help anybody along in their journey. Like I've been helped along in my journey. So whoever, I would talk to anybody. And I would support anybody in that role. 100%.
And there is experience there that I think I'll be bold enough to say that you have that some of your colleagues will not have.
Oh, okay, oh, sorry, oh, I was leaving that. I'm sorry. I just said that I believe it's very likely that Councillor Hinch has experience that her colleagues would not have. I think we are so modest a lot of times, and we've been pushed into that modesty in various ways. That knowledge is made invisible, I think, unfortunately. So I'm wondering, Virginia, you spoke a little bit about challenges, and I do think about tonight more as celebratory and really focusing on the strengths, the labor, the work, that the transformative work that continues to be done here in communities. But if there were a way of thinking through some of the challenges, would you be comfortable, any of our panelists be comfortable in sharing a little bit about that and how you navigate that?
Sure. I think one of the biggest challenges that I face, and I guess you got to get over it, is that I'm going to tell you this. We need to support and lift each other up. It is difficult when you are alone in situations, in places, in meetings. It does something to you. But when you recognize and when you realize that you have the backing of a community, that means a lot. So I say to community, and who is community? Everybody here. Please learn to embrace those that are in leadership roles. Well, the thing about it is you mightn't like them, but respect them in the role that they are in. That is very important. You know something, I don't care who's against me or who's sort of in the room, but when I feel that I have community behind me, that's that push that I need. And that is so very important. My mindset in life and my attitude has been, you know something, always to continue to lift someone else up. Because when we lift each other up, we are lifted. We are lifted up. And that is so, so important. So important that we look at each other and in the roles that we're in, that you know something, that we're there to do a service, we're there to make a difference. And we are stronger, 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 stronger. I can't stress that enough. We are stronger together. Stronger together. My mindset, my attitude is none of us got where we are on our own. So with that being said, let's continue to work together. Let's continue to build, because there's no stopping or there's no limit as to what we can do. I believe that.
I have a quick follow-up to that before we continue into the discussion of navigating challenges. I'm wondering, this is for Minister Gross or any of our panelists, given that we really are stronger together, what does healthy disagreement look like?
Oh, that's a good question. That is a good question.
I chew on these things later, right?
And so I just want to say, and me and the minister, like, you know, we work together. So not that this is against anyone. I'm just using you as an example.
Sure.
So we are, like both legislators, we are from two different sides of the party, two different sides of the room. And what I can say is this, and I know the same to the minister, because we can talk outside of the legislature. We can have conversations. We can have candid conversations outside. So the thing that I take from the work that I do is that I'm not there to carry that. Like,
right.
I go into work, I have specific things that I need to do. I have requests of my constituents and the communities that I serve. And so it's not personal. It's there because it has to be said. I'm saying these things not to attack or to have, you know, a battle. It's to say that this is what we see, this is what is being seen, and this is what needs to be done. How are we going to move forward? And at the end of the day, and I've said this to my other colleagues who are in that same space, I hope you don't think I care about you after I leave out of this space. I have 7 children at home. You are not my work. So don't think I take this home and I'm just stewing on it and I'm saying, oh my gosh, I wish they liked me. I'm not there for that, you know? And so I say this because you can have some healthy conversation. We may have some questions at each other in the house, but outside of that, I'll say, Minister, can I have a conversation with you? And we will talk outside of that. We will have a meeting time. We'll have a coffee. There are those moments where we can do that because when we're in the house, it is our work. And this is the work that we have to do. But, you know, and it comes back to building each other up and supporting each other. You know, we don't have to agree, but we can also have an understanding of what's happening, right? And take that in. So I just say from that.
I just add to that, outside of politics, because we have a lot of disagreements in our community, our community organizations, our families, you know, our extended families and so on. And I think what's important is that you engage in the conversation and focus on the issues, not on the person.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have to attack people. We don't have to attack people. You address issues. And when you stay focused on the issues, then you have those conversations and you're working through. Or sometimes, quite frankly, you might just walk away. That might be the healthiest thing to do. Because sometimes you can't have those conversations. And when you know, don't fight a losing battle, move on. Next.
I concur with that. I could say today was a spirited conversation in council today with the budget. So I could say there was a lot of spirited conversations, but at the end of the day, I'm one vote. It didn't go my way, but I realized, you know, my counselors, the rest of the counselors, I've only been there 6 months. I think it's going on 6 months now that I've been there. And from this day one, they said, you know what, Virginia, you only have the one vote, and it may not always go your way, but the thing is, we don't take this outside. We don't take anything with us. We are not We don't have no malice or nothing for each other. We respect each other. We will always respect each other. And for the past 6 months, that's what I've received. They respect my opinions. I respect their opinions. It's been very good because I've never really been in that space. And I say I haven't been in that space because of my previous job, because there was always a little bit of back and forth in my previous job when it came to racism and things of that nature and all that stuff. But this space I can't believe how relaxed I am, how happy I am, how, you know what, I thought I was making, you know, I kept saying to myself, what am I doing here? When I first came in, I'm like, what am I doing here? What are you really doing here, Virginia? And then, you know, what did I get myself into? But they have, and there's some of these counselors, like, you know, Dave Hensky, been there for thousands of years. Dave knows I love him. That's the truth. He knows I love him. But, you know what, they have taken me in and they have treated me with the respect. And I give the respect back. So I definitely appreciate that. And I definitely thank them for that. So yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. I'm realizing this is a rogue panel. It's being done right, so that's great. Any other thoughts on the subject of navigating challenges in the course of your work? Thank you.
You just asked the question again.
Okay,
I
yeah.
heard half of it.
Thank you. Okay. Any other thoughts about navigating challenges in the course of your work?
Challenges as a Black person, sometimes our life is a challenge. And so what you do with challenges, I always say, take a challenge and turn it into an opportunity. And that's what you can do. Challenges are always going to be there. We can't allow them to discourage us. We have to deal with them, turn them into opportunities, and move forward. Because to say that everything is, you know, no matter what you're into, no matter what you're involved with, there's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be people that don't like what you do, that don't like what you say, that don't like what you stand for. But I guess part of it is believing in you, believing in yourself and what you're doing and why you're doing it, then that's important.
Yes. I totally agree with that. Like I said, I've been here for 6 months so far, and the first couple of engagements that I've had with people, if I wasn't the strong person that I am, I probably wouldn't have known the door.
That's true.
So, and I realize that, again, I know that those challenges are going to come. It's how I accept those challenges and how I interpret those challenges. And again, not everything, I can't be defensive about everything, because again, and the one thing that I will say is I asked for this job. I asked to be here. So, you know what? I'm here, I'm doing my job.
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm doing my job. So I don't take it lightly. And I know that not everybody is for me, but I do realize that, you know what? I do have something to say. I do represent my community, and I will continue to represent the whole community, not just the partial. I have 25,000 constituents in my area. I will represent you all.
I'll just add a couple of other comments to that, if I may. I have a whole process that I use for problem solving. And one of the things that I do is really, I start by looking, where's the support? And so finding support, who are your allies on this matter? You know, who can you call on, who can you draw on? The other thing that I have learned over the years is it's important to be very strategic.
Absolutely.
Timing is everything.
Yes.
So when and how you deal with the situation is really, really important. And I always believe that I always want to leave a situation, a difficult situation, with my integrity intact. And so, you know, at the end of the day, when I get home, I want to look in the mirror and feel so, and that's worked for me so far. So really, you know, maintaining my own dignity and integrity in a situation. And I've been in situations where people have been just outrageous, and I just keep my head held high. And the lower they go, the higher I get. I'll tell you why. And I think Maya Angelou says this, you know, people may not remember what you said.
Remember how you made it?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for finishing. Remember how you made them feel. And even though when someone is wounding me, and when we're feeling wounded people want to wound others. I've never tried to do that.
That's nice.
Always try to I'd rather walk away from a situation.
Yes.
I don't want to be that person who's wounding someone else. Because it's not going to, and at the end of the day, it doesn't help.
No.
And it doesn't change anything.
No, it doesn't.
And they walk away thinking about how nasty you were. Well, you know, I don't think anyone can say that about me. Because they've not had that experience with me
Exactly.
of being nasty. Although I've had many things that have happened to me that, you know, make me want to be nasty and feel angry and feel in absolute rage. But I know I can't act from a place of rage. So we do a lot of work.
Yes. Okay, so those are 3 pieces there. Thank you very much. Class is in session.
One of the things I want to say, and I'm sort of diverting a bit, I know, but I just want to mention this. Some people mistake, as Black women, some people mistake our passion for aggression.
For real.
And that, you know, sometimes we can get very, like when we're so passionate about something, first thing is, oh, they're aggressive. You know, they're aggressive. Or, you know, the stereotype of the angry Black woman. And, you know, it's funny how society sometimes pains us. Because, you know why? Because we've had to literally, in some cases, fight for, we've had to fight for not everything, but we've had to fight for those things that we believe in. And in fighting, we become very passionate.
I just want to say, and just to touch on, because everybody said amazing things, and I think that's what helps build us up and keeps us going to do the things that we do. But for me, I am an extremely positive person. I guess you had talked about the National Day of Happiness. So, and all the while, even though I was being shot down, I was like, today is the day of happiness. Why can't we be happy? But in saying that, I also want to say that, you know, I take challenges as opportunities. Because when we think about, like, the experiences that our ancestors have gone through, the experiences of our parents and family and anyone around us who have experienced some negative things, we have to look at it in a way, especially in our role, as a way to how do we navigate that system? Because I may not be able to penetrate this person, but how do I network around that person to get to what I need to get to in order to help somebody else, right? Because we don't do it alone, and I think, you know, to your point of the support system, that's how the people around us help keep us guided and connected to do the work that we do. So it seems like a challenge because at first it may be a bit of a stumble because you're trying to figure it out and pivot and adapt. But you know, the end game is to help and to do the work that you need to do, and as well, keep yourself safe so that you're not, you know, overdoing it or you know, burning out and not being helpful for others. So I think, you know, challenges can be opportunities, and if we think of it that way, it can be a different story for folks.
Great, thank you all. That was really great. Okay, so I'm wondering, what do you see pressing issues in your constituencies and in African Nova Scotian communities. And maybe work that you are engaged in or planning for.
Well, I can, for Halifax Needham, and as well other communities across the province, some of the pressing issues that I hear from folks a lot of the times are on housing, being able to acquire housing and have affordable housing, because we're seeing smaller and smaller amounts being available to folks, and we don't see enough being built in the province to really kind of capture those folks that are in dire need right now. Gender-based violence, obviously that is it's always going to be an underpinning for everything when it comes to some of the issues that happen in our communities. And then as well, the hot topic now, because we're sitting in legislature, is whatever bills are going across the table. So we get flooded with emails of people's concerns about a number of things and how we're going to react to them while we sit in ledge. So, but housing is always the key piece. It's steady. Like from the time that I've been elected, standing outside a housing encampment, trying to tell the police to stop, doing what they're doing. I think that has always been the consistent in my riding in particular.
Okay.
I can piggyback off that a little bit as well, because again, we're in the same riding, so housing affordability is another thing. Also, like I said, we're in talks with the budget right now, and right now we're looking to increase the tax rate 7.6%, which a lot of people are not happy with, so I'm getting 7.6. So we're trying to find ways to cut that. We're trying to find ways to, but for some reason we're having a difficulty taking things off. So so that's a hard challenge in itself. Trying to please everybody, but trying to also continue with the services that you guys that we all receive under the municipality. So those are some of the hard choices and decisions that we're making. Also, when it comes to being on being a commissioner on the Board of Police, I did not know. Well, I did know what I was getting myself into to a point. What I will say is that it's a lonely place to be when your Board of Commissioners don't have the same issues you have that you deal with. So I would say, again, but they're lovely people, but they're just, and they understand that my issues our issues are not their issues. So that's what I'm trying to convey, and also be respectful to the police at the same time, but also let them know how I feel with regards to the police and HRM. So those are some of the things that we're dealing with. Also, gender-based violence, so many things. But those are some of the things that we're dealing with as well.
I guess one of the things is trying to work with policymakers to make meaningful change. One of the key things also is trying to ensure that our communities are engaged. Have to be engaged. Have to discuss these concerns and these issues, because as we know, I'm not going to say African Nova Scotian communities and people of African descent, but the Black population in Nova Scotia is probably about 3 or 4%. So that means you have to continue to stay engaged. You have to continue there has to be a lot of advocacy. There has to be, one of the things is resources. Ensuring resources for the communities, supporting like things like the systems, like, education and healthcare. As we said, advocating for better housing, transportation. And the key area is development, economic development, because that could really strengthen communities as economic development. So there are so many things, so many different issues, so many different things to advocate for, but that's important. But it's also very important that we ensure that communities stay engaged, stay in the know. You know what, be there, go to meetings, get out there when they have hearings and all of that. Find out what's going on, because we can no longer stay isolated. Because you know what, everything is starting to build up around us, and pretty soon it closes us in. So we have to get up, we have to expand, we have to be more involved.
So federally, in the Senate, we're not allowed really to get involved in local issues.
Right.
And so we wouldn't, so I won't comment on that. But I'll comment on two things federally that I think have relevance, huge relevance for our community. One is, I believe that one of the things is Canada has signed on to a second decade for people of African descent. I believe Nova Scotia has also signed on. Most of the provinces haven't yet. So Nova Scotia is a little ahead on that. We need to take advantage of that, work with that. There's also the permanent forum in the United Nations for people of African descent. So we need to make sure that we're engaged at that level, because those are things ultimately that help us with all of the things you're talking about. One of the other things federally that I wish had been done by this government that wasn't is actually not having a guaranteed livable income. So I think we should be making that an election issue, but unfortunately the people who are actively involved and engaged couldn't care less. So there hasn't been that political will to move forward with a guaranteed livable income. I really thought that would have happened after COVID. And when the wage subsidy happened so quickly, and I'm waiting for the legislation to come for a guaranteed livable income. But there was not the political will. And how do you achieve political will? It's constituents raising the issues. So again, our voices matter. The other thing that hasn't happened that I had hoped would have happened in this last parliament was actually changes to employment equity. I think that's something that will help us here. Government insisted on a task force. The task force reported in December of 2023, and we did not get legislation to make those changes. And one of the changes that's really relevant to us is having the Black Canadians separated out from the visible minority categories. That's huge. It would make a significant difference for us in terms of employment and employability. So those are the big pieces federally that I'm concerned.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. Now, I'm wondering what advice each of you might give.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This is the community supporting. I'm wondering what advice each of our panelists might give to Black women, young Black women who are considering entering politics or advocacy work, and again, in a more concrete sense, because you've spoken beautifully in terms of let's say, taking heart and having courage and believing in the value of one's lived experience and so on. But just maybe some more of those concrete pieces of how one might start approaching this idea of actually getting involved.
I would say myself, knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
The more you know, the more comfortable you're going to be stepping into those roles. I went to, what do you call it? Oh my goodness, I just lost my word.
Election training.
Election training, like campaign school. Thank you. Multiple times. I
when I first thought about my journey going into politics back in 2016, I was going to campaign schools. Up to 2024, I was still in campaign schools. Because again, I wanted to be prepared for what I was going to do, what the challenges were, and things of that nature. Not only that, I found very little of my color being in those schools. Maybe one or two of us were there, and the rest were other minorities, whites, and of that nature. So I would really, really, really stress if there is a school that is happening, and again, we can open up our own campaign school. So that's what I would like to see happen. So do it ourselves. So if there's one thing that I could say, that would be it. To acknowledge, to arm yourself with knowledge.
Thank you.
I just want to say that absolutely educate yourself on what it is you're going to be stepping into, but also know that you have the power to do that work. Don't doubt yourself, because when you do that, just like anyone else who steps into a role that is unknown, you learn it as you go. And people around you will surround you with that information and the ways to do the things that you do. I say this because I didn't know what Emily did. I had no idea, what they overseen, all that. I just knew that something was wrong, and I had to be the one to say it, and I was hoping that I was the one to be representing them. And so that drive to want to do the good work, to be your true and authentic self in whatever workspace you're in, is exactly why it's important to be able to step up in a role. And I would hope that the things that are being said here today is inspiring to folks, because anyone can be in any one of these roles. Anyone. Yes. It doesn't matter. As long as you're a voting member of Nova Scotia, you can be elected into any position that we are sitting here recognized as. So I say, don't doubt yourself. Absolutely look into it, figure out what it is you want, and surround yourself with your team. I have a team, Susie. I have my party team, and I have my community team. But I have my team, Susie, that looks just like me. Anybody who has said, Susie, we're thinking about you, we're praying for you, Susie, I want to tell you how good you're doing, Susie, you need to... Anybody that said that to me is a part of Team Susie. And that builds me up in the work that I do when I'm in those spaces where it's team myself over here in the corner. And that doesn't mean that I don't have that strength. It just means that I know that I'm being built up by the people that are supporting me. So, yeah, don't ever doubt yourself. Believe in yourself, because people are believing in you to do that work. So if they believe enough in you to do it, step up.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on that?
I think in terms of getting more, young black women involved in these, leadership roles like politics and whatever, I think mentorship is very important. Yes. Mentorship is extremely, extremely important through black leadership, and also, through mentorship, and then of course education and access to decision making. It's important that, in some of the roles that we're in, that we think about mentoring individuals, that we think about giving back through bringing someone else along. I always say it's one thing to get to where you're going, but sometimes when you get there, it can be lonely. So reach back and start bringing others along. I think that's important. Mentorship is very, very important. Because the reason why it's important, because I had mentorship. I had individuals that took an interest in what I was doing and who mentored me along the way. And those mentors, they didn't always look like me. And so it was just someone that took an interest and said, you know what, I'm going to assist you, I'm going to mentor you, so mentorship is the key. Mentorship is very important. And if you have the time, and if you have, the desire to do it, I think it's very, very important.
I do a lot of talks. in schools.
Yes.
A lot of senators do, but I think they've told me I do more than any of the other senators. You know, still working 2 or 3 times as hard, right?
Yes.
To get half as far. But when I'm talking to young people, I have 3 basic messages to young people. Number 1, get involved in your school. That's where civic engagement begins. In your school. So being involved in school is very, very important. Secondly, with students in high school, I always ask, you know, what are your plans? And I almost feel my heart bursting when someone says to me, I'm planning to take a gap year. We know that when our young people take a gap year, it turns into 10 or 20 years. And, you know, lots of bumps along the way. And so I really say, look, I don't care what you do post-high school, but plan to do something. Getting a post-secondary education. And then number 3, strive for excellence in your field. That is something that nobody can take from you.
That's true.
When you strive for excellence in your field, so be the best that you can be for yourself, but also for the others who will come behind you. So when young people are sort of saying, you know, how can I do this? How can I get there? You know, these are things you can do, and let's start early. My grandsons and I, we have questions here.
QB.
We have questions here. And I remember on the day that Prime Minister Trudeau resigned, I didn't get the notice. And my oldest grandson was running to the house. Nanny, have you heard the news? And I'm thinking, what happened? You know, is someone's house on fire or something? And he said, Nanny, Prime Minister Trudeau just resigned. They're following.
Absolutely.
They're engaged.
Yes.
And I want that for every young person. You know, we should be encouraging our young people to be involved and engaged and to ask questions and be prepared to answer the questions because it's important. We want them to be engaged citizens in the world.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm wondering if there are any formal measures that you think might be helpful also in increasing that encouragement in terms of representational diversity and so on. Like, you know, some people talk about quotas. There are various kinds of more formal things that can be done within the system. Have you seen or found anything like that to be helpful?
I haven't seen anything formal, but I think that one of the things that every political party can do and on every level is actually to create programs, create mentorship opportunities. They all have these programs for young people. So, you know, there's the young liberals, the young NDPs, the young conservatives. Are any of our young people involved in any of those? And so maybe the party has to take some responsibility. So as parents and as community, we have some responsibility. But I'd like to see the parties do some work in that space to say, you know, we want to create opportunities for young people of African descent. We want to bring them in. I remember having these conversations at the housing years and years ago. We were talking about not enough people with post-secondary education. It has to start early. And I think it's the same with politics. It has to really start early. And I'd like to see the parties step up and set up programs. I could see summer internships in offices, all sorts of things, you know. Give us a few hours, we can come up with all sorts of programs. We just need someone to fund them, right?
That's right. Well, I will say it comes down to the structure. Like, I can speak from a party side of view, is that, you know, initially when I first got into my role, I was the only black person, black woman, in a seat with my party. We were small, there was 6 of us. But the first thing that I did was I said, everyone in here needs to be trained. There has to be an understanding of my lived experience and the lived experience of my communities and the history of our communities in Nova Scotia. We can't just say, oh, well, Susie, can you pick out 5 people to contact? I'm not doing that. What we need to do is have an understanding of who are the key people in community we need to tap into. Have these conversations, connect with community, figure out what's going on with in their own communities, and then bring that back and try to develop it within some of our policies and some of our own legislative things that we would like to see if we were ever to form government. And that's where, like, the party, the democracy comes into play, so that when you become a part of a party, there are some things that are there that are already embedded. And as a member, you get to speak on those things or create those things that you would like to see the direction of your party to go into. So, I mean, for me, it was about initially not being the token, initially not being, you know, the black woman in the room that has all the answers to every black question in the world. And to a point of, I never felt that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm grateful that I was in a room of people that were like, Susie, we will never bog you down. We will follow your lead. Whatever you decide, if you don't even want to vote on that, you go ahead and you stand up for your community and the people that you serve. And so, like, for me, that was huge. And it comes down to the structure in which we want to be a part of, whatever party or group or community we're in. How does that benefit all of us, right? So that was one of the things. We have a long way to go, as we know, when it comes to the structures that, even with the party structures, it was not designed for us to be there. It was never designed for us to even sit in legislature. But we're here, and these are the things you need to recognize, and these are the things that we have to do to work together to get there. So, I mean, that's from my standpoint, and I think that's where it starts. And I think, to the minister's perspective, it's like changing policy. How do we reach those folks to change the way that they've been doing things that never ever included us and never had our voice? So it's just trying to create those spaces through our voice and bringing others in to have these tough conversations with folks to be able to change the way that they think and see and do things that may not be what they accept, but it's who we are as a province. So I say that from our perspective, but I think it does start with a structural change.
It does.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think one of the things is when we went to school, we used to have debates. I don't know if they have debates. I don't know if they have debates now. But debates are important because you know what it does? It teaches you how to research a topic and then present your views on it. So debates are very, very important. I think it used to be the Black, what was that group called? They used to have that debate every year. I can't remember. But anyway, it was, there were pretty good debates on various topics. Another thing is this. Getting our young people to actually go over and visit the legislature. That's very important. You will, when you go there, you'll recognize and realize that there are some of our people from the community that have made contributions. Do we recognize that at Delmore Buddy Day? He was a sergeant at arms, which is, we see what the sergeant at arms,
One of the most important
and I don't think that people even recognize the importance of that position and that role. Over there in legislature, you will see the first in community, or the first, the Black people, the Honorable Wayne Adams, the Honorable Yvonne Atwell, and all of those, they're there. It's really good for our young people to actually take the time, go there to see how law, legislation is passed. That all is very, very important. One of the things that I've tried to do, and I know MLA
I know we call
Hanson
each
has
other by
done.
our areas, so
Yeah.
wherever.
MLA, but is invite people to the legislature. Like just whatever. It means a lot when you can invite people from community, when you can recognize them, when they can sit there and be recognized. Those are little things, but they're important things. I know we had, there was one young, he came with his father because I did a member statement on him, and you know what? He's about, I don't know, 18 or 19 years old, and he visited with his father, and he was fascinated. And, you know, and it's so, we have to show our young people these things. It's one thing to see them on TV, television, and whatever, but to actually allow them the opportunity to experience these things, and that there is also a place here for you. And that's very, very important, that they actually see that.
Thank you, Minister. Okay, take heart. We're nearing the end of the marathon here.
I did.
Yes, go ahead, Councilor. Thank you.
That's right, yeah.
We're still going.
Totally different perspective, yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
So I do agree with everything that has been said up here, but, you know, municipal government is a lot different. Totally a lot different. And, you know, we meet probably every second Tuesday. We're there. It's the last session where I was there from 10 till 9:30 at night. So sometimes it can go long. It just depends on the day. But I would invite anybody or any young person, anybody, to come in and to see what we do in municipal government and how we interact with folks and whatnot. And like lately, like I said, budget, budget. Okay. If anybody knows, Ms. Iona Starter, she knows. So, but yeah, the only way that we're going to learn is if we actually go into those spaces and we do those things. The other thing is that I sit on so many boards. That wasn't my plan. That was not my plan. My plan was to serve my community. No, I'm here to serve my community. My community, I need to be help my community. But it was mandated that I serve on these boards. One of them is diversity and inclusion. So I was at the meeting last night for diversity and inclusion. And the one thing, we talk about some things, but we never talk about us being in municipal government or provincial government or being in those spaces. I'm like, you have a board for diversity and inclusion, but yet you're not talking about how to really get into that space. I'm there as a counselor, yes, but I wouldn't have known that, to be honest with you. I wouldn't have known, because I didn't know I had to sit on those many boards. But anyways, I digressed. And I understand my role now. But to be on those type of boards, diversity and inclusion, gender and equity and those boards, there's a place to have that conversation to get other people to make that step forward to either get into politics. So that was one of the conversations I did have last night. So just to let you know that we need to be having this in a broader sense, whereas if you are having interest in being in politics, this is the way to go. There was one gentleman there that night. He was first time at the board, first time on that committee. I just met him for the first time, and he was like, you know what? Thank you, because I was interested, and I'm still interested, but you know, I'm still young, and I'm like, well, literally, come to our meetings, come. Like, I will definitely do what, I will mentor you, I will do whatever you want. I just want to see you there. I just want to see you there. I just want you to know that those meetings are not just for us, they're for everybody. So anybody can attend.
Let me just add one little point.
Yes.
If you're not able to physically go.
Yes,
to
you go
those
online.
places, you can watch on TV.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
Everything is televised. So, you know, you can watch.
For those who have
encourage, watch with your children. Or internet. Yeah. Exciting debates.
Yes.
All right, so we're nearing our last two questions. We're going to open it up to the audience very soon here. So my almost last question here is, what would you like to see in the next, let's say, 5 years to a decade? And Senator Bernard already answered a little bit of that with some of the legislation, but just one final go-around. Ideally, if you were just going to be as idealistic as you might allow yourself to be, what would you like to see in the next 5 to 10 years in the landscape of your work?
I want to see an African Nova Scotian MP. A woman or a man, but we haven't had one. People keep talking about Gordon Earl, and it's wonderful, you know, he was the first. But what they don't say is he's the only.
Yes.
Yes.
He was the first and he's the only.
Yeah.
So we have an election coming soon, so it may be too late for this election. But then that means we have 4 years. 4 years to prepare people to run. So it's not just about whether or not someone's been elected. Guess what? If you don't run, you don't get elected, you know. So we have to have people running. So that's a personal agenda for me.
Great, thank you, Senator.
I would just like to see more people engaged in all levels of politics. If that happens, you know what, you're at decision-making tables, and that really does make a difference.
Thank you, Minister.
You're welcome. I would have to say pretty much the same, but I would like to see, especially in municipal council, that there's more representation. So I would definitely like to see that.
Thank you, Councilor.
2 things. In an ideal world, I would love to at least have 50% Black people sitting around the table so that there can be, you know, some good representation. But if that is, and the first thing I'd like to see, and I say this every single time I stand, or most times when I stand up and talk about legislation, I'd like to see all of our pieces of legislation viewed through the lens of African Nova Scotians and Indigenous folks and gender diverse. Like, I think we need to have a better perspective and a handle on the legislation that we put forward that is basically viewed by cisgendered men or only white folks. And there are some that is viewed through other departments in that aspect, but I would love it if we had a specific group of legislators or folks that prepare legislation to view it under the microscope in that way. First, that would be the first structure I'd like to see change, or an ideal piece. And then secondly, more people that look like myself sitting around the table, or represent a good representation of Nova Scotia as a whole around the table.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so as we wrap up this portion of the panel, I'm going to give our panelists the opportunity to leave us with some final words, final thoughts, and then we will open it up to the audience for questions. So any final comments that you might like to share, or we can just open it up and leave that for the end.
Can we open it up first?
End, okay, all right. Any questions from the audience?
There's someone over there.
All right. Now, I think, I don't know if we have, what do we do with this mic? Can we take the mic? Let's see how long this is. Okay. You okay here?
It might be as far. Yeah, just don't.
Thank you. So I took a lot of notes, so I wanted to say thank you to all of you for being here and doing this tonight. I heard a lot of us and we and ours. And a lot of times when we're talking to men from the political atmosphere, you don't hear a lot of that. So I really appreciate that. And I'm really nervous and I'm trying not to talk fast. I want to get this out. So I work in community right now, and I work for City Council. So you and I will see, I saw you on Tuesday at City Hall, and thank God you only kept me there for 2 minutes. It was great. It's great, I didn't know. But my challenge in community right now, especially in the Preston Township, and because we're in the Preston Township, I'm talking to everybody here, is to, and I'm sure you understand this, quell some of the political apathy that we are experiencing at all levels of government. So, you know, I'm being challenged right now to step forward and start a civics club, which is kind of nerdy, but I like it because that's my lane. And I've had people say, well, you gotta change the name of that if you want our people to come out. And it's really frustrating because civics club is civics club. And the 3 layers of government, that is North America. Democracy is democracy. So my question for you is, what is advice that I can use right now, because I'm working on these things right now, to try and really get people engaged? Because the reality is, you know, I'm trying to teach our people to own their mandate. And the only way to have, you know, political representatives on side is to participate in the democratic process, right? And it's to be out there and be engaged with our elected officials at all levels so that they hear what our issues are, right? And I'm having a really hard time both getting people to understand the importance of that and changing some of the perceptions because of historic mistrust. So what can some of, you know, what are some things, little things that I might be able to do to get people involved and really fired up to be part of our own solutions? I know that's a big question, but that's what I'm thinking. Thank you.
Okay, so, sorry. I come from a community facilitation background.
Right.
So, for me, I understand the challenge of sometimes folks not buying into what the name of something that it's completely, they have no idea what that might be, or they're mistrust and they don't believe in it.
Right.
I think, you know, that's where your imagination comes into play, and I know you'll utilize that in a different way. But I think the option you have right now is to organize folks, right? And how do you do that? You tap into the people that are older, younger, leaders in community in ways that you probably already have, and have them understand what you're trying to portray, and bring them along with the group of folks that you want to bring in. When you have their attention, that's the engagement piece, is creating those pieces of, this is why we're engaging you, this is why it's important to learn this, this is why we need to be more involved in this work. I can speak for myself, but I'm pretty sure everybody on this panel would say, tap into these folks. You know, at the end of the day, we have a knowledge that can benefit and also can explain some of the things that you might be trying to portray in a way that we are actually living it, right? And so that, but as well, just, you don't have to convince people. I think you just have to be able to say, this is what's important, these are the reasons why. Look around you, this is what's changing, this is why we need to talk. You know what I mean? And utilize it in a way that people understand, because there are things that are changing all the time, and no one has an understanding. I mean, when I started, I had no idea what legislation did and you know, all these pieces. But now that I know that it impacts every fabric of what we do in Nova Scotia and every person, I'm very much more aware to say, this is why it's important for us to pay attention. So I feel the passion in what you're saying. I think you're driven to do that work because it's important, and just keep that passion along while bringing people in to support you with that work. I hope that answers.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
I think one of the things is sometimes we think that we need to work with a big group. And I think, you know what, if there's just a couple of people that you can work with, that's a good start. You know something, and can I be honest with you? You want me to be honest with you? Okay, I need to be honest with you. Somebody's a hero, but that's okay. I'm going to speak because she knows what I'm going to say. As the MLA, the member of the Nova Scotia Legislative Assembly for Preston. Okay. My support, you know, when we look at the support, did not come from the township, and that's fine. And I say, and here's what I say, I don't really care about that. Nonetheless, I'm here. I'm here to serve you, to assist you, to advocate on your behalf. But I can't do that unless you come see me, unless you come and you speak and you say these are the concerns. What we found is this. People in community are coming in to the office one by one and having those discussions about, well, you know, I'm frustrated with this. I'd like to get this moving. These are some of my thoughts and some of my ideas. So there are folks out there that recognize they want to get involved, they want to build up communities you know, and do things, but they're realizing is like, you know what, I'm just gonna start this myself. And it is absolutely, you know what, amazing. I'm so impressed with some of the ideas, some of the thoughts, some of the real concerns and issues. And here's what's really starting to resonate with me. Folks are actually recognizing the problems and the issues that we have in our Black communities. You know something? They're not going to go away. We're going to have to start getting involved. We're going to have to start working together. We're going to have to start looking for solutions, because we are the ones that are going to build up our communities. And I am concerned about our communities because, you know something? Our historic communities are shrinking, and we need to be concerned about that. No longer can we just turn our eyes from the things that are happening. We need to get involved, we need to get engaged. And so your thoughts and your ideas, you know what, if it's 2 or 3 people, work with what you got. And guess what, you know what, you'll start to bring more in when people see what you're doing. That's my advice. You're welcome.
I would have to say that I agree with that 100%. But also, I have went to bed nights and dreamt of what it could look like, how we can draw people in, how if we do civics, if we do political science, if we change the name, if we're more open with what we're wanting to discuss. Like, these are things that I go to bed thinking about all the time. These are the things that keep me up at night. Because again, even going through this process it wasn't easy. and just like Minister Gross, the people that represented me mostly did not look like me. The people that supported me did not look like me. And that's okay. That's okay. Because, at the end of the day, some people do support you. They come on board finally. I wish to have more on board as well. So, but, you really have to try to find some way to tap in. And I think you're onto something, because, you know what? If we don't do this now, then it's going to get lost. It's going to get lost, and we're going to be back to square one. Absolutely. So I appreciate everything that you're doing. Like I said, if I could change it to political science or something like that, have some type of courses or something. That's for even all ages, to be honest with you, because again, when I have these conversations and I'm talking about municipal government, they're like, oh, are you trying to be prime minister? They're bringing up names or things of that nature. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm doing. Or no, I can't give you your citizenship. I can't do that. So, and then when I have to explain exactly what municipal government is, and again, I'm still learning all the ins and outs as well, but I still try to help people along. So if I don't know the answer, There's her.
That's true. That's true. We'll work together.
And I say that because, you know what? She's younger than me, but she's also my mentor too.
There you go.
So I go to her for so many things, and she has helped me so much along the way. Okay? There's no possible way that I could have did this by myself. And she's been with me for God knows how long. Yes, from the very start, and I appreciate that, and I have supported her in the same way.
Yes.
So, that's how we need to roll.
Fun fact.
So, yeah.
Fun fact. It's the first time ever 2 black women are sitting in the same jurisdiction as counselor and as MLA. Black women. And we love each other a lot.
We roll up, we get with
Any other comments on that question?
Change the name. Don't get hung up on that.
Yes.
Yes.
No, that's right.
Yes.
I agree. The focus of the work is what's important.
That's right.
Exactly.
So you need something that will catch their attention and get them in the door. Then you do your work. Work your magic.
Yeah.
I'm on it.
Good. Any other questions?
You guys gotta come up.
Can I sit down, Bill?
Yeah.
Where the mic reaches. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Good evening. Thank you all for answering the call. Thank you. There's a lot of people who are faith-based in here, and basically the word says that he will equip you. So definitely, thank you for answering the call. So I just have, just listening to, again, to the things that you're saying and the desires of your heart and whatnot. Sorry, the eyes is almost like I come out like this here. Councilor Hughes said different. I heard that word, and Senator Thomas, you alluded to difference as well between the 3 levels of government. So I'm just wondering if there's a way to help folks see the difference, because if they call, oh, I'm getting evicted next, whatever, and how do I, that's not a municipal issue. Oh, can you help me with this funding, because then this is not, you know what I'm saying? So like, because I called one time about something on my lawn or whatever, and I found out that was municipal. There was someone who used to live in my house like 10 years back, and then the person who, whatever, had a bunch of their stuff, they left it on my lawn. And so I was like, well, what do you call for help about that? And then they actually got fined for leaving that stuff on my lawn. So I was calling like, because I know, MLA Susie, so I'm like, but that's not a provincial thing. So just advice and like kind of honing in on letting folks know the difference, because I feel like that our ancestors had many different ways of dealing with our government and running our society and running our, so implementing ways, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And so just implementing those ancestral ways of like running our society, and I think that's it. Let me read that. No, that's it. Thank you.
Well, so where I would say is that, like I said, with the 3 levels of government, it's all about education, knowledging yourself, arming yourself with what we need to know about the 3 levels of government. It's if I can be blunt and honest, I mean, we were never taught these things. And quite a few of our ancestors never followed these things either, to a point. So it all, when it goes back to being in school and all that stuff, trying to educate our kids, it starts there for sure, but it also starts in the home. It starts in the home because we need to educate our kids. We need to arm our kids. We need to arm ourselves.
For real.
So, I mean, I would say that's where we need to really start having the real conversations. Ever since my son was a young little boy, from the time that I was voting, he was voting with me.
Here you go.
I would take him along with me. For one, I had no choice. Two.
That's not the point.
And two.
Teachable moments.
It's a teachable moment. So yeah, so we need to really, educate ourselves, educate our kids, educate each other. So yeah.
This is part of the grade 9 curriculum.
Yes.
And so it's a requirement in Nova Scotia that every student is supposed to have a course on citizenship in grade 9. And so I think as parents, grandparents, as aunties, we have to ask the questions. That's why we have a question here. Absolutely. Absolutely. What are you learning? Right? You have to be able to talk back.
Yes.
Share what you've learned. So there's a citizenship course in grade 9. And that's where a lot of the students I talk to are in grade 9. I'm invited in by those teachers.
There you go.
Right? So much depends on who's doing the teaching and what they choose to cover. But how do we ask questions of those teachers?
Here you go. Yeah.
Right?
There you go.
And I will say too, it also comes down to, at the end of the day, we have a responsibility as folks who are in these positions to really engage folks and to inform folks about what's going on. Which, folks have social media, folks have newsletters, folks have, all of these aspects to reach people. And I think we and I say this as a Black politician that knows how hard it is to engage folks at times. You have to use every aspect, every tool in the toolbox to do that work. Because what we want, and what I want, is to gain trust in the people that I serve, so that they can come to me and ask me the hard questions, or ask me about the things that they'd like me to ask the government about. So, I mean, it comes down to, as well, we're having a responsibility of, as politicians or as people in these positions, to educate. And as well, pass on to community, and community can do the same, right? If we're working in that same circle, and folks are getting the information from all different facets, eventually it will sink in, and they will ask these questions. And then, if it's learned in school as well, it will be, reinforced, right? So I think the earlier the better, but we all hold that responsibility to teach that.
Again, I think, like everybody's saying, it's all about engagement. And one of the things is there's social media. I post all kinds of stuff on social media. I do advertisements in the paper. I send out information that shows you the various different, the common numbers that that people use, like 311, 811, 911, and all of that. When you get these little information cards in your mail, you know what? You see a lot of them. People just throw them by, whatever, but they put them in the garbage. There's good information on them. I try to send out information on, grants and different programs that are available. Sometimes we have to, yes, it's our responsibility to put it out there, but then it's also, as community, it's your responsibility, to see these things and to ask the questions. I like what, this Tara, don't be afraid to ask questions. If you don't know something, whether you call your counselor, your MP, don't be afraid, because you know what? We can direct you whatever. So sometimes people say, well, no, they're not going to, don't be afraid to ask.
It's our job.
That is our job to support and to represent you.
Yeah. Okay, we have time for just 1 to 2 more questions.
You talked earlier about the challenges, and one of the things I didn't hear talked about was money. And it costs money to run. And so I know, I'm less familiar with municipal, so I'm really interested to hear about that. But I know when you're talking party politics, if you're not a preferred candidate, if you're not in the riding that they really want to support, there's less money coming from the party. And so how are you are you doing that, and how do we make that less of a barrier to running?
Good question.
So I would say for municipal government, to be honest with you, when I started this journey for this time around, I knew what I was coming into because I ran in 2020, I ran in 2016, but I only went so far in 2016, so I decided to back the incumbent, Lindell Smith, like I said. So 2020, we were going through COVID and everything. So I was still knocking on doors, I was still getting up there. It was still kind of it was a barrier. Susie was my official agent at the time.
Yes.
So we some challenges that we did have. Money-wise.
Tight budget.
Tight budget. Tight budget. And I will say even in 2024, I mean, the good thing about running for municipal and working for the province, I can still keep my job. So if I was running for provincial, I would have to take a leave of absence. So in 2020, I worked and I ran the campaign. We did a great job, but unfortunately the incumbent won, which is, always mostly the way. So, but with that being said, I did put my name out there. So when I ran, because I knew he wasn't running in 2024, so I strategically did that. I ran in 2024. Money was still, it was very low. Very low, still had to work, still had to do, and I was okay with that. I was okay with that. My weekends, my evenings, all that, and my vacations, I did everything that I could possibly do right. I even did take some time away, but I realized I have bills to pay and things of that, I still have those things that are coming monthly. The bills are due. So I had to, and there was one person of white privilege who told me, oh, take out an extra credit card. Just take the time. Just I'm like, maybe you can do that. But that is not what I'm used to. I can't go to the bank and ask for a credit card because, they want this, and this, and this, and this. It's not as simple. Plus she had her own business. So there was that aspect of it. So she wasn't understanding where I was coming from because she said, you can win this totally, blah, 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 blah. You just need to take a leave of absence. I'm like, that is not feasible for me to do. So I continued on my journey and I continued to work and I continued to campaign, which, as we know, how the results came out. So I will say that I would wish for more support. We need the support. We need monetary support. We need these things in order to make a to have a successful campaign. We can't just do it just on our loins alone, literally. So I mean, like I said, the second time that I ran, or the last time that I ran, there was very little difference in money, but there was a little bit more money. I would say that. And there was more people to support me because they knew my name from the last time. So I would say that. Yeah.
But you don't have a form of fundraising yourself?
I tried to do that, nobody showed up. But or very little people showed up. And and it's okay. I understand what the times that we are in. Like I said, I had to work through my campaign. So I get it. And again, this is me, it's my journey. So I have to figure this out myself. And I don't have a party or anything of that nature. But I did have some good core people to help me over this journey as well. So there may have been 5 of us, but we were good. And we made it, and we did what we had to do. So,
Yes.
yes.
Well, from a party point of view, I'm with a grassroots party. So like every member is a member that, you know, can maybe give $5, maybe 10, some a little bit more, but it varies, right? It's not a consistent amount. And when I ran the first time, nobody knew who I was. I mean, sorry. People knew me in my community, but nobody in the party knew who I was. So I was, as was said, you know, one of the members coming in that was vying for the spot. I was trying to be nominated to be the person to run as a candidate. And when that happens, you spend your own money. And you know, people give money and you collect it and you put it in a pot to pay for things like flyers or buttons or, you know, little small things that catch people's eyes to let them know who you are. Then when you become the candidate, yes, the party does give a bit of money, but like I said, I'm from a grassroots party, so the party's money is slim. Because we have members across the province, right? So, you know, you work with what you have. And I mean, I'm someone who I can work with any budget. Like, if you give me a couple dollars, we'll figure it out in other ways. Like, the advertising thing for me, like I said, it's not a challenge. I just figure out it's something else. We were spending thousands of dollars on these pamphlets, these papers that people were throwing away. I was like, put a billboard up. Put that one right there. And I had a big billboard in my community with what my thing was saying, and that was what everybody drove by every day. So those that didn't know who I was could see that it was me, and I was way bigger on the billboard than I am in person. So, you know, larger than life, right? But like you have to think through it in a different way. And so, you know, there's not a whole lot of money when it comes to like the work that we're doing from different aspects. But from my party side, even in the second time around, it was skimpy because I had to fundraise. So when you're elected, the day you're elected, you fundraise from the time you're elected until the next election. So you have, you know, an EDA that is doing some work behind the scenes. If you have a really good one, they're amazing at it. We have grassroots folks that don't know what to do and how to connect to people sometimes, and that doesn't always get done in the right way as quick as possible. So you still work with what you work with, and you just make it do, right? So the second time around, the party added a little bit more, but because I did so well the first time, they took the money that would have went to me and put it to another riding that could be better effective, right? Which is fine, because we want more seats. But I still had to just figure it out and fundraise in the best way that I can in the way that I know how. So it's that type of thing. Sometimes you have some money and sometimes you don't. You gotta, you know, figure it out in ways that works for you.
Yeah, like money we shouldn't say that money's not a deterrent. Because again, you have an electoral district association, and so they should be operating all throughout, and they're, you know, fundraising and donations. So your people will fundraise. If people believe in you, they'll give you a donation. You do different fundraising, whatever. So it's, and you know, most of those folks that are involved or that are current MLAs and whatever, I mean, they're just ordinary folks. Like, you know, they may be, you know, they might have been a school teacher, they might have operated a small business and things like that. So some people have the mindset that, you know, it's only rich people that are running. No. And so that shouldn't deter us. Where there's a will, there's always a way. Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you, Minister. So we have just about 3 minutes left. I would really like to thank our panelists and, this is all right. Sorry, everybody. We have just 3 minutes left. I would like to just allow our panelists to say one final word, after which I'd like to profoundly thank each and every one of you for the time that you've put in with all of us tonight, and with everyone who turned up tonight, because it's been long. But as happened with the last one, it's long for a reason, because it's needed, and people, I thought half the room would be gone by now, and you're still here. So it's, again, a real testament to how important this conference is.
thoughts or words from you?
I would, so this is my first time here in this space. I never thought I'd see myself in this space, I'll be honest with you. So I thank you for inviting me for sure. I thank you for everybody that's at this table because I have, I'm continuing to learn, I'm continuing to grow in my new position and hopefully, I want to serve at least 2 terms and hopefully that'll be the case. So, I would like to say thank you to everybody out there. You guys were gracious. I didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you, and I didn't know how I would react to be, because again, I'm not used to being in spaces. I'm not used to being in council either. So I'm learning that role as well. So, and I'm learning how to navigate interviews and things of that nature. So I thank you.
Good job. Good job.
As well, because again, they're mentors of mine. So,
There you go.
and I will always look to you all to continue to support. Yes.
I think it's evident, and I wrote this so that unity is our greatest strength. And while the challenge we face, there's always discrimination, there's always racism, there's always underrepresentation, and they may actually evolve over time, but at their core, they still remain the same. And so understanding this history calls us not just to reflect, but to act. And I think it's very important that we continue to have discussions, that we continue to have open forums like this, that we continue to encourage, folks to engage. Engagement is very, very important. And I think that helps. I thank you for the opportunity. It's been great, and it was definitely interesting in the room. So let's continue to build on this. Thank you.
And thank you for the concrete pieces that you gave us tonight, because I really appreciated that. It was a conversation, but you also left us with some concrete things, tasks, and things that we can do.
I as well want to say thank you to each and every one of you staying and listening to us, and just being here to support us through our journey, but as well, I'm learning a lot from everyone in this room, but everyone at the table. And I truly highly respect each and every one of us here at this table. I'm always in awe when I listen to the things that we all have to say from our own lived experiences. And I have tons of notes, so I will take some away. But I also want to say that, we shouldn't just end these conversations. These conversations are ongoing. And we shouldn't be afraid to be able to step up and be in space that we may think may not be for us, but it is for us, because we belong everywhere.
That's right.
And if we're not there, we need to question why we're not there. So I say that in the sense of, this is a wonderful conversation being had today, and as well from last year, a continuation, and I'm grateful to be a part of this conversation.
I'm very grateful for all who've come tonight, for my fellow panelists, thank you. For the organizers, thank you. And I've just been reflecting on the fact that today is actually the International Day for the Elimination of Racism. And just thinking about that, and thinking about the tragedy and why we have this day, why we mark this day. And so as you leave here this evening, I want to invite you to reflect on the day, and then reflect on what you heard here from the group this evening. And think about what's an action you can take.
Yes.
And maybe that action is having a conversation with someone in your orbit. So we all have different people in our sphere of influence, and we all have influence. So have a conversation with someone about something that you heard here tonight that you want to continue the conversation around, and maybe there will be some action. Thank you.
Okay, would you please join me in giving a much heartier applause?
So I'm going to beg a little more indulgence for folks. Is that okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. So I was remiss earlier in acknowledging that one of my board members who are here this evening. I did see her down getting interviewed, Tia Upshaw. Our nonprofit, and know the importance of your board. So I just wanted to say some of the learnings. I wanted to give a context about what this first session has done, what the second has done in terms of a larger project that's happening. And I want you to know about it because I want you to know it's another place for you to engage in action and support change. So I hope that those little teasers keep your attention. I know, appreciate that. So some of the learnings, and they're just caps. Representation matters. Voice matters. Experience matters. And they should be all valued. Stay engaged. Get involved. If it's a passion, then persist. Mentoring has a role. You can mentor up, as they say, or you can mentor laterally. There is all forms of that for all of us to take on. And I love this, have a question period all the time. Right? So engage with curiosity and to be there. So in the beginning, I acknowledged that this was kind of the second in a follow-up to a previous panel that was held in this way, and that brought us here today. But I also want to acknowledge Dr. Wanda and Dr. Mackey. Folks, please. Sorry, folks. I also want to acknowledge Dr. Wanda and Dr. Mackey in terms of bringing us forward, not just into this next panel that we've just experienced, but also into a bigger project. And so we have this project called Together We Rise. And I think that naming in itself, I hope, means something to us in terms of our community. We've talked already here also about Lift As You Climb. We talked about trying to be supportive for each other. So this larger project, Together We Rise, is still focused on Black women. It's still focused on empowerment and leadership. It is looking at gender-based violence as well. And it's been supported, and this is really something to celebrate, for 3 years by the Nova Scotia Advisory Council on the Status of Women here. And I want to thank Josie McKinney and her staff team who are here for their support in terms of this project work. So we have an advisory committee, steering committee. We have different initiatives and projects. And again, you saw who's the collaborators and the partners for this one. As various ones go forward, they will also be inviting additional partners. We will have the consistent ones in terms of Delmore Buddy Day and the Status of Women, and the Black Cultural Center has been with us through the previous ones that we've held and ones going forward. So what do we want to make sure that we also include in this? We want to bring what Delmore Buddy Day Learning Institute does, research. We want to bring forward data collection. We know that our numbers count, our anecdotal stories count, what we do in storytelling counts. So we want to be able to gather that, and we want to be able to form that into ways that will affect policy. We've also heard about that. We want to have change, sustained change. We want to impact policy. So the projects that have happened before and the projects that are continuing into the future all will need participatory action research. What that translates into is you informing, responding to the questions. We're going to have a survey, QR code is going to come up here in a few minutes if it's not already there on the side. But we want you to complete those. Some may have wondered, why do we do registration? We have a sense not about your individual name, but collectively, who is interested and engaged in these conversations. That helps us too with bringing our voice forward in a very structured way. So you'll see other projects coming forward. We're going to have a way on our website of sharing information in real time. We'll continue to engage, and plus we welcome suggestions about what you think this project over these years should take up in terms of the work that we're doing. So again, I want to acknowledge things have been a seed that was nourished. and now it's growing into something that is going to be rooted, maybe as a baobab tree, but something strong and form into the future. So I also want to, at this time, I want to show appreciation. I want to acknowledge the DBDLI staff team who has been here. Magda, somewhere here around, project coordinator. And Ryan, who has been playing a media support role. We're trying to grow in the different ways that we get all the information and share things. So we have a collaboration with Mucho African Radio, and it's called Mucho African Nova Scotian kind of radio projects. I don't know if Jean-Pierre is still here as well. So we have another way of sharing information. It's important to us to try to speak with folks as often as possible in ways, in a variety of ways as possible.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one that we're doing. The media here, the community updates, those folks are here on site as well to help us with sharing the information and capturing the stories, and I'd appreciate to anyone who accepted their opportunity to their offer for interviews throughout the evening. We also had some media connections that I want to mention. CBC, I think it was CBC Information Morning and CBC Main Street. And so you'll be able to find those online. But, you know, again, for the plug-in, like, ask folks, why aren't you covering these stories, right? If you don't see them in the media that you watch and you think it's important that they be shared, you can not only just ask the curious questions, you can make the strong recommendations or what should occur. I also want to thank our ASL Sign Language interpreters. It was really a gift for us to be able to offer this mode of communication and sharing of learning. I also want to thank Opus Cafe Catering. As someone had said, we come into spaces with a welcoming in many ways, and one of those is food. And that time together, I don't know, I think lots of us will have the experiences where we sat around kitchen tables together. Oh, I think Dr. Wanda, that was a project you had as well, table talks, which is also another piece that feeds into this work that we're doing. But it opens up space for us to feel comfortable and to share and to have conversations. So it's nourishment for both body and mind. So thank you very much for that in terms of the catering support. I'm going to do a little scan. I have one more group, and then I'm also going to ask Dr. Mackey to come up, and so we can give a little recognition gift to our panelists. But you know, have I missed anybody? I've got this on the biggest font that I can get. I still get that. So I of course want to thank everyone who's here this evening in person, who has been online. And I hope that you feel the valuing that we have for you in terms of your participation and your voice. And I'm very appreciative of all the panelists and to our moderator, Dr. Mackey, for demonstrating to us, give the space, the welcoming time to tell your story, to share information, to have dialogue. There's so much that can come from that. And I hope that you're taking that away with you as you go. I'm happy to hear from you with ideas and suggestions about what we can do, but I'm going to give you a little warning. I might say you're going to join me on that journey to make whatever that idea is happen, because I think we have lots of strength and knowledge in here. So thank you again, and I haven't missed anything, we'll bring up the gifts. Okay.